Over the last 4.5 years, me and my partners at Metagame have invested millions of dollars in providing bankroll, coaching, and tools to over 250 online cash game players who have accumulated over $6 million of profit in the process. In this period, I've seen players move up from 50 NL to 1K NL in less than a year. And I've also seen players go into 80 buying downswings that took forever to recover. In this video, I'm going to share with you the most important lessons I've learned in this journey about what it takes to succeed in poker and in life. Let's go. Putting everything I've learned the last 4.5 years as a backer and coach in a single YouTube video is impossible. There's too much to talk about and not enough time. But I know you're here watching this video because you want to succeed in poker. You want to make more money, move up in stakes, play perhaps big live tournaments and high stakes cash games. You're here because poker is an important part of your life and you want to maximize your chances of achieving the best possible results. So in order for me to generate value to you, I could talk about two things. I could talk about the things you must do to achieve success or the things you should avoid in your quest for success. At this point, it feels to me everyone knows what it takes to succeed in poker. Study a lot with solvers, play an aggressive strategy that punishes weaker players, and play consistent volume to realize your edge. That's all obvious. What is not obvious is what you should not do in your poker journey towards success. What are the things you absolutely shouldn't do? What are the common mistakes people make that prevent them from growing and improving as fast as they could? Those are the questions I want to answer in this video because I think they will be more valuable to you than anything else. Let's get to them. The first thing you absolutely must avoid in poker is underestimating variance. Unfortunately, 99% of poker players underestimate the magnitude of variance and its impact on results. Very often, you see a player becoming very overconfident in periods of substantial upswing, which causes them to be reckless with their table selection, too aggressive with their shot-taking methods, and not very disciplined with their personal finances. And then, when the inevitable downswing comes, these players accumulate huge losses that take forever for them to recover from. Variance in poker is brutal. I've seen very strong, clearly winning players go 7, 8, 9 months straight without making any money. And here we're talking about the poker format that perhaps contains the least amount of variance, which is no limit hold'em cash games. If you want to succeed in poker, you cannot afford to make this mistake. It's better to substantially overestimate variance than to underestimate it. For that, I recommend you have at least 12 months of expenses saved up to cover downswing periods. In my staking business, I've seen players that, because they didn't have such savings, found no alternative other than quitting poker and getting a traditional job because they had to pay their bills the next month. These players could have had amazing careers in poker. A lot of them had the talent and work ethic that is required to be successful, but unfortunately, they didn't have the proper planning and financial organization to be able to commit to poker long-term and sustain its inevitable swings. And when I say inevitable, I really want you to take this seriously. Variance will get you one way or the other. It's just a matter of time. In the last 4.5 years, I have had great students undergo disgustingly big downswings that can make you question your decision of playing this game. And it can happen even if you're a strong player that has edge over the field. You have to prepare for this event because if you're not prepared when it comes, it can be catastrophic for your career as a professional. Another measure that is very important to take when the subject is variance is bankroll management. If your only income is your poker winnings, then you must protect your bankroll at all costs. It's your bankroll that allows you to make a living from poker, so busting it completely is out of question. Most people will recommend 100 buys of bankroll if you're a cash game player, and that is indeed a good starting point, but I recommend you adjust this number based on your own risk tolerance, total edge over the field, that's very important, and the size of your savings. 100 buys might sound like a lot at first, but imagine you lose 50 buys on a downswing, which will in fact happen at some point in your career. How do you think you're going to feel knowing that your bankroll just decreased by 50%? You most likely move down one stake, so now your income is cut in half. But even then, you'll be so traumatized by the downswing that your capacity to perform is probably going to decrease substantially, which means that your win rate is going to be lower and therefore your income is going to be dropped by more than half. When that happens, it will take a significant amount of time for you to recover, and this is when those savings will come in to rescue you. So if you want to be conservative and absolutely minimize the chances of seeing your income reduced drastically in difficult periods, I would recommend around 150 buy-ins of your biggest stake for a safe management. This covers the bad part of variance, the part where bad luck causes you to lose money. But there's also a good part of variance, money that you win because of good luck. Positive variance is obviously something to be grateful for, and overall it's a great thing to make an excess of money in short periods of time. I remember back in 2019 when in the beginning of the year I won almost 100 buy-ins of 200 NL in February, which was obviously a big amount of positive variance. That excess amount of money allowed me to invest in staking 2 of my former private coaching clients, which culminated in the creation of Metagame. It also allowed me to move to a bigger apartment in a better neighborhood with my wife, where we could enjoy a higher quality of life. However, positive variance can also be dangerous, particularly because it makes us overconfident. It's actually funny how that works. When we lose a lot, we're quick to attribute it to bad luck instead of incompetence. But when we win, we do the opposite. We consider ourselves responsible for all that money and somehow feel like we're the next Phil Ivey in the making. I've made that mistake very early in my career. The first time I did this was back in 2017, when in June I won almost 70 buys at 100 now. Man, I felt like a god. I felt unbeatable, like nothing could stop me. And because of that, I had the brilliant idea of spending most of my bankroll and leaving it at a mere 30 buy-ins for my main stake. Safe to say that did not go very well. After a few months, I saw myself grinding 25 and out to pay my bills, and I was forced to sell my $4,000 car to cover expenses. My advice to you when it comes to positive variance is do not think for a second that you're immune to losses just because you won a bunch of money in a few weeks. If you get lucky enough to have some excessive money coming in, put it straight to your savings. And if your savings are at a good level, then I would suggest using this money to invest in your career, either to shot take higher limits or to pay some form of coaching from someone you respect. Whatever you decide to do, remember that you are supposed to get lucky in poker sometimes, just as everyone else. You're not special, so make sure you keep studying and being consistent. The next thing I believe you absolutely must avoid in a poker career is neglecting the studies. This happens extremely often, and the funny part is that it happens both to players that are losing and to players that are winning. A lot of players convince themselves that when they're losing, they must play higher volume to dissipate variance. Volume is the only medicine to downswings, they say. Wrong. The antidote to downswings negative variance is a bigger edge. Take a look at these variance simulations from PineDope. If you have a 3 big blind per 100 win rate in cash games, then they're going to be in the middle of a 20 buy-ins or bigger downswing 51% of the time. If your average shoots up to 7 big blinds, however, then the chance of going through the same downswing goes down to 13.73%, almost 4 times less likely. The same poker players that play more when losing to press variance may also be the ones that study less when they're winning. Overconfidence takes over and they feel like they don't need to study and their time is better spent playing more since all they can do is win. This is terrible. Don't be someone who does that. Studying is what allows you to increase your skills, and it's your skills that allow you to make money. It's as simple as that. A lot of people think that study is a waste of time because they could be grinding instead, where they would make at least some money. However, the proper way to think about study is that you are actually getting paid for it. It's just not immediately. Think about it this way. When you sit in front of your computer to study, you are building skills that will allow you to make a higher amount of money in the future than you're making today. So what you're doing is you're trading a small amount of money in your pocket now for a bigger amount of money in your pocket in the future. You are getting paid to study. It's just that the reward comes later. And that's the problem with most people. Most people cannot wait for the reward. Most people can't delay gratification. That's why we have an epidemic of digital addicts to social media like Instagram and TikTok. And that's why year after year, the number of overweight and obese individuals grows in the world, even among children. If you were to ask people, do you want to be addicted to social media to the point that you can't properly function in your day-to-day life? I would imagine most would answer no. And if you were to ask people, do you want to be obese and suffer from all the related diseases that come with it, the answer would obviously be no. That said, the numbers only grow, and that's because choosing to do something that pays off big, but only in the distant future, is much less fun and exciting than just doing a moderately fun thing that pays off immediately. Immediate is easy, and immediate feels good. If I asked you, do you want to be the same limit you are now in 5 years? I imagine you're very likely to say no. If that's true, then you need to learn to delay the reward and fight the temptation of trading the study hours for more grinding hours just because grinding is more fun or makes you money in the short term. In these last 5 years as I worked as a coach, the most successful students I've had were, not surprisingly, the most consistent with their studies. Guys that are religious with their routines, every day separating some time to further increase their knowledge and hone their skills. And in the other side of the spectrum, I've worked with players who struggle significantly to engage with the studies and develop healthy routines. These players might even get good results in the short term, I'm not saying they can't, particularly because they're capable of playing high volume. However, eventually, they stagnate at a certain limit, which prevents them from maximizing the EV of their careers. When it comes to study, what I generally advise is combine efficiency with satisfaction. If the study is all about efficiency and there's no element of curiosity and fun, then you're likely to skip it the second you're not feeling very well. It becomes a chore And given that there's no one to tell you that you must study, you just do whatever the hell you want to do in the moment. So when building your study routine, make sure you include not only the topics or formats that you think are important to your win rate, but also things that you have a genuine interest in figuring out. And this will help you with staying consistent, which in the end is the most important thing of all. Lastly, but definitely not less important, the one thing I would recommend you absolutely avoid in your journey towards poker success is being risk averse. When I say risk averse, I mean not only in your technical and strategical execution at the tables, but also with your career decisions off the tables. At the tables, being risk averse is one of the worst things you can do for yourself. The moment you become emotionally attached to the monetary outcome of your decisions is the moment you should stop playing. Poker rewards those who can focus on maximizing the quality of their decisions regardless of how much money is in the pot. Of course, it's much easier said than done, but your ultimate goal as a professional is to approach all hands you play with the same level of intensity, focus, and emotional detachment. Doesn't matter if it's a limped pot against a reg or if it's a big pot on the river for your whole stack. You're a pro in every decision. You're thinking of big blinds and EV, not money. And beyond that, population tendencies research shows us that being extremely aggressive with our investments, like both in terms of bets, raises, and calls, is what maximizes EV. Therefore, playing with a more conservative approach, influenced by risk aversion, will be detrimental to your profitability as a poker player, as you'll be constantly passing on lucrative opportunities because you can't emotionally handle the swings that come with high-risk plays. Strong players are not afraid to run a huge bluff on the river when they think it's the correct thing to do. Strong players also don't hesitate to make a big call down with a marginal hand if they think it's a profitable investment in the long term. And when it comes to maximizing EV, you should do both of those things very, very often. Winning poker is aggressive poker. Winning poker requires taking risks, embracing variance, and the swings that are inherent to this profession. You cannot and should not be averse to risk if you're playing poker professionally. Now, off the tables, a lot of players also exhibit risk-averse decision-making that can be very detrimental to their development. One example is when the player is reluctant to implement changes in their game because they're afraid it might not work and could lead to them becoming a worse player or losing money in the short term. Poker is a very dynamic game, and those who stay at the same level of execution for a long time will get left behind. If you're not open and audacious enough to try new things and change your strategy for the better, other people more audacious and less risk-averse than you will be upgrading their games by trial and error and will eventually become better than you and beat you. A big part of improving poker comes down to trying out new things that you're not yet sure will work. Maybe it won't work, but even if it doesn't, you will have learned something new. You have a greater understanding of the game after trying and realizing you should actually move on. Perhaps you're risk-averse because you're afraid to make mistakes. There are many poker players with this tendency. And this is something that affects not only your career in poker, but your life as a whole. I have coached dozens of players that demonstrated immense resistance to apply a more aggressive strategy in-game. I would get into the coaching session, review their database, find a bunch of spots that they could be playing better. I would give them advice on how to improve, and they would reply confirming that they would work on that. But then, a month later, I would do another review only to find those same leaks again in their stats. These guys are the type of people that get very uncomfortable with the idea of changing and perhaps being wrong. Making a mistake is a terrifying idea to them, but it shouldn't be that way. It is exactly through mistakes that we learn and grow. Not acting due to fear of being wrong is a big self-sabotage behavior, in my opinion, that will cap your potential and stand in the way of reaching your best version. Don't allow that to happen. Embrace mistakes. Learn to view them as an integral part of your journey and realize that every mistake gets a little closer to the player you want to be. If you enjoyed this video, I'm gonna ask you to leave it a like here and also subscribe to the channel. And if you did enjoy this video, I would imagine you're going to enjoy this one that I talk about similar things of this video. See you there.